represented at all within psycholinguistics and neurolinguistics. And so Maria wanted to fill that gap, hence bringing Leela and myself together with her to work on her Marie Curie. And she is going to be doing some psycholinguistic studies looking at bilingualism. She'll tell you obviously more about that, but I really wanted to give her the props, so to speak, for doing this type of work. There are many challenges, right? By which I don't mean any evaluative negativity in that, but real challenges to doing this type of work, especially integrating methods that have not considered, unfortunately, populations that are different than we tend to study amply in the weird context, right? In the Western context that we do. So through these, through her work now and confronting challenges we anticipated, challenges no one could have anticipated. She's going to talk a little bit today about some of the work that she's been doing related to Indigenous multilingualism, and in particular using and adopting in an appropriate manner some of the methodologies. In particular, the LHQ is something that looks to gather information to quantify the experience that people have with their multiple languages. So without further ado, Maria, I leave the floor over to you, and just start talking. I'm running to my office and I'll join online.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Applause.
Thanks, Jason, for your very nice introduction. I will be talking about my specialty today, which is the Mande languages of Guinea, and I'm especially interested in Mano, Kpelle, and Susu. So I will take you on this taxi Bruce, so to say, in West Africa, so you can see on the map to the right where Guinea is. I don't expect you to know where it is. It's not a very popular tourist destination, and in particular, the region where I started my work is in the southeast of the country. So I will talk about first my prior work especially on the Mano language, its contact with another Mande language, Kpelle, and contact-induced variation patterns. Although this is not psycholinguistic work, the patterns themselves are very important, because this is pretty much the same phenomenon that I'm studying in the current project, which is employing psycholinguistic approaches to heritage Mano and Kpelle in the diasporas this time. And in the last part of the talk, I will be talking about the questionnaire LHQ3 as a background measure, and the trouble we've had to adapt it to the setting at hand. So I begin with my prior work on Mano, and I am having a bit trouble with switching between the slides, actually, but yeah, I will do it manually. So yes, my prior work has focused, as I mentioned, on Mano, on the Mano language, which is spoken in the southeast of the country. You can see the light green. Do you see the mouse, by the way, the cursor? Do you see it on the screen? Do you see the pointer?
Yes. Yes.
Good. So Mano is spoken here. This narrow stripe. And as Jason mentioned, I have worked a lot on language documentation and description. So I wrote a grammar of the language. I published a corpus of annotated text, a dictionary, and I have also worked on a number of particular topics from theoretical or typological perspectives. And in case there is somebody in the room or online from the vast group of people at Lancaster who work on in corpus linguistics, I've also done a bit of work on narratives and corpus study. And one of the major aspects of my work has been a study of contact of Mano with Kpelle, these two indigenous languages. So Mano is spoken by about 90,000 speakers, and Kpelle by 5 times more speakers in Guinea. So you saw that there are adjacent areas on the map. There is a strong ethnic identity associated with these two languages. This is something that I will be talking about more later. And there's this thing that is called a patrilect, which is the identity language. It's not the mother tongue, but it's the father's language. And it shapes socialization, language choice patterns, and much more. So this will be very important for the background measures. The speakers of these two languages intermarry quite often. They are engaged in common economic and religious activities, and there are mixed settlements. This is all very important to understand the social context of these two languages. And this is almost like a lab in the field, because there are different kinds of settings. There are towns and villages. There are mono or quasi-monolingual settings. There are balanced bilingual settings, meaning the two languages are spoken in more or less equal measure. And there are communities where one of the two languages is dominant. Neither language is more prestigious. So we are talking about two indigenous languages. Neither of them is the majority language in the sense that it's associated with education or some particular economic activities, but they're really balanced socioeconomically speaking, but Kpelle is more numerically dominant, and this is important in our case. And this is what, as I argue in many works, leads to cross-linguistic influence of Kpelle on Mano. So I have studied contact between these two languages in a so to say, as a whole, so an influence of one language on another, and we say that language A, which is Kpelle in this case, and language B are taken as a whole, so without considering variation. And I have worked on different kinds of patterns, syntactic parameters such as coordination or valency, also on lexicon. But I have also worked on multilingualism-induced individual variation in two parameters. One is reflexivity and another is in prosody. I understand what the issue is with my slides. Just a second, please. Actually, no. I realized that I don't, but okay. Maybe I will ask you still. I'm sorry, I haven't thought about that. How do I do it such that there is a, I have some animations in my slides which highlight particular parts in the slides, so it's important to understand them. Do you know how I do it such that, okay, sorry.
They just play normally, right? It should play. Normally they just play. Yeah. So when you share the slide shows.
Yes, I see.
Whatever you see on the screen should be visible on. Yeah.
Then no. So this slide, for example, it had, sorry, this slide already had some animations.
Does it go onto an external website or something? Is that what you're trying to show us?
No, sorry, I'm trying. No, so do you see the slides now?
Right now, what we see is the slide titled "Contact Phenomena Studied."
Yes,
A and B.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
But I somehow you see it like as a whole, but I can't make particular parts of it appear in the animations. So and I haven't.
I think
how do I do this? Like the.
Yeah, I think you can if you go out and double check the animation there, make sure you activate them, or because sometimes they're not activated. So if you want to double check, you've actually set that up. You can go back, go out.
No, I mean in the PowerPoint itself they are set up, but it's a different mode of showing. So I don't know how to. Yeah, but maybe so that we don't lose the time.
be because you're sharing your slides on Teams directly, it seems. So maybe it works when you share your screen instead.
Yeah, maybe it's just exactly.
Yeah, what you can do is you can get out of this Teams full screen and share your desktop or the whole page that you see on the desktop, and then through that you can show us the specific slide, and not through Teams, but through your desktop, and then go back to sharing it on Teams again.
So I stop sharing.
Yes, you stop sharing your slides only, and then you share your desktop.
Just share screen.
Share screen.
Set up window.
Yeah.
Share.
I just share. Okay. No. Screen.
So when you
yes,
click,
yes. Okay, I think I understand.
There you go.
So now
you
see. Yes. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So yes. So my
there you go.
Wonderful. So I have worked on the language contact, which between the two languages, taking them as as holistic entities. So as if Mano was taken without any internal variation, and I have worked on things like coordination, valency, and also lexicon as things that were influenced by Kpelle. But I have also worked on multilingualism-induced individual variation, which includes reflexivity and prosody. And these are the two things that are the core of the current project as well. So I'd like to thank colleagues with whom I have worked on it. I haven't worked alone. And I proceed to explaining the first key phenomenon, which is reflexivity. You can see the two languages, the paradigms of pronominal markers in these two languages, Kpelle and Mano, and you can see that in Kpelle there is no dedicated reflexive pronoun. So there's no such thing as myself or herself, and there's no such thing as se in Spanish or soy in French. So there's really one and the same paradigm of pronominal markers which can be used in reflexive and in non-reflexive contexts. In Mano, there is a dedicated reflexive pronoun, which is used only for the third person singular, which is e, and it contrasts with the basic or non-reflexive pronoun a. So let's keep in mind that contrast. So this is how it works. Let's take something like baseline Mano, which is spoken in monolingual villages by individuals who speak mainly Mano in their daily lives. And if they say something like e Zulu, it would mean she washed herself and not somebody else. And if they say e a Zulu, it would mean she washed somebody else and not herself. So there's complementarity between e and a, especially in the direct object position. Now in Kpelle, if you say a moi, it would mean either she washed somebody else or she washed herself, the very same form. This is because there's only one, as I said, there's only one prefix in Kpelle that is used both ways in reflexive and non-reflexive contexts. Now, if somebody who has primarily Kpelle as their dominant language, and if they speak Mano as their second language, they would very likely say something like e a Zulu with the a marker. And for them, it can be used either as she washed somebody else or as she washed herself. So what we see here is monomorphological material, but there's a transfer of the Kpelle syntactic pattern where there's only one marker. So what we did was designing an experiment which targeted variation in reflexivity. So you already saw that there is a baseline variety and there's an L2 variety, and we wanted to see how these two patterns are distributed across speakers of various backgrounds. So we had a production part in the experiment, which consisted in pictures that the participants were asked to describe. So the material that we elicited were utterances where a pronoun in different syntactic positions was used to refer to another noun phrase in the clause. So we targeted reflexive configurations. And you can see images that were used in the experiment. The question is, how often do speakers use the reflexive or the non-reflexive pronoun in relevant contexts? So if they use 100% the reflexive pronoun, it means that they employ the Mano complementarity model. And if they don't use the reflexive pronoun at all, it means that they employ the Kpelle non-complementarity model, which results from cross-linguistic influence. The experiment involved more than 100 individuals, and if we exclude children younger than 15 years old, we would have about 60 individuals, and we tried to have a varied sample with individuals coming from different kind of villages and different kinds of families. So if we exclude again the children, we have 60 individuals with a mean age of about 40 years. And this is the baseline that I mentioned. So in a Mano-speaking environment, in Mano-speaking families, so the red ones, we have close to 100%. So the individuals use the reflexive pronoun almost 100% of the time, and most of them do so. In the bilingual environment, which I've briefly introduced already, it means that there's no dominant societal language. So Mano and Kpelle are used in a more or less equal proportion, and most individuals learn both languages from birth. It's either from their families, which are bilingual, or from the community, from the people around them. And we can see that the patterns are pretty much the same as in the monolingual environment, and this is not what literature on contact would predict. So if there is intense multilingual interaction, it would be predicted that there would be some cross-linguistic influence, and this is not what we see. And if we aggregate everybody, so you can see here that there are speakers from different families. If you aggregate them into one group, there would be no statistically significant difference from the baseline. And now in the Kpelle speaking environment, meaning it's a Kpelle dominant environment. Kpelle is the dominant societal language, and where Mano is spoken, we can say that it's spoken as a heritage language, because we have individuals who acquire it from birth, but still they are exposed to a dominant societal language, which is Kpelle. As I remind you, it's another indigenous language, but still it's numerically dominant. And we see that there's more Kpelle model in all groups of speakers, and it doesn't become statistically significant, but you can see still that there is more Kpelle model. But if we take separately individuals from Kpelle families, some of them are simultaneous bilinguals, and some of them learn Mano from at a later point in their life. This group shows the most variation and the greatest influence from Kpelle, and this group is statistically significantly different from the baseline. So family becomes a crucial factor in patterning the variation. We also used the same data from the production experiment, which we recorded throughout. We recycled it to study tonal realization, and I'm afraid I won't have time now, but maybe at the end, or if you ask me, I can tell you what we found. In a nutshell, we also found the significance of family and individuals from Kpelle families, again, pattern differently. And we also have an interesting experiment in comprehension that will also translate into the current project in the diasporic communities. And I can also tell you more about it later, just to make sure that I have enough time to talk about the essential things. The main takeaway points from prior studies is that cross-linguistic influence from Kpelle is quite important on Mano in a number of parameters, but also, I didn't say it before, it's not observed everywhere where it's structurally possible. So it's not that Mano is overwhelmingly aligned with Kpelle as the numerically dominant language. It still resists convergence in a number of parameters, but in many other parameters, there's still some convergence with Kpelle. And when we zoom into the individual variation within the speakers of Mano, we can see that individuals from Kpelle families, meaning that both parents are Kpelle, some of them are simultaneous bilinguals, some of them are L2 speakers, they are the most different from the Mano baseline. Well, this is something that we of course expect, but it's also confirmed with numerical evidence, statistical evidence. So my current project adds psycholinguistic approaches and especially methodological approaches to the study of variation. And I switched to heritage Mano and Kpelle in the diasporas this time. So again, taking the taxi Bruce, this is where we used to be in the southeast of the country. And now with the current project, we are actually moving back to the capital, Conakry, capital of Guinea, and also another part of the project focuses on Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire, where there is an important diaspora of these two language speakers. So as a snapshot, I'm interested in individual variation, but especially in simultaneous bilinguals in diasporas in Conakry and Abidjan. In Conakry, where what we have is Susu, which is another indigenous language as the main societal language. As Jason mentioned, indigenous languages in general, and especially indigenous languages of Africa, haven't been studied much as heritage languages. In using psycholinguistic approaches, but here we have an even rarer situation where we have indigenous languages as minoritized languages, as heritage languages, which are in contact with another indigenous language as the societal language. In Susu, like in Kpelle, there's no dedicated reflexivity marker, so I expect to see something similar to what I have shown you in the effects on Mano, but in Kpelle, maybe there won't be any variation because the syntactic patterns look, at least on the surface, they look similar. And then in tones, which I haven't talked about, I expect something interesting in both heritage languages, in both Mano and Kpelle. In Abidjan, which is the economic capital of Côte d'Ivoire, and this is the part, the Marie Curie part, which I will work on together with Jason and Lila. Adamu, we have French and especially French-based Creoles as the main societal languages. And as you know, French has a dedicated third-person reflexivity marker, but not third-person singular as in Mano, but third-person marker that is used for both singular and plural. And as far as I know, in the French Creole spoken in Abidjan, it's the same reflexivity patterns. And then tones, what happens in tones is also quite interesting. So this is the background on the languages. And the conceptual setup is as follows. I want to look at individual and group level differences in a triangular comparison. So I will look at diasporic communities on Mano and Kpelle speakers, including the parent generation who migrated as adults and children who are socialized in the diaspora, so our heritage speakers. And I want to compare them with the communities in the home base. The main question then is, do we see cross-linguistic influence directly in the heritage speaker grammars, or we see it already in the parent generation, so we can attribute the effects to what is called cross-generation attrition. So that's the conceptual setup. And what's different from the prior work, in addition to the different groups of speakers that I will be studying, there will be a new production questionnaire that responds to psycholinguistic standards. It's longer and it will have more fillers, and we will use tonal minimal pairs as fillers. So we will have 2 experiments in one. There will also be a different study involving comprehension. There will be comprehension with reaction time in Abidjan, and the most important thing, there will be new background measures, including a new background questionnaire, which is LHQ3. So now I'm turning to this last part of my talk, and I will be talking about the way I have worked to adapt LHQ3 as a background measure. I don't know if Teams allows that some kinds of reaction. So how many, I would like to ask you, how many of you have used this questionnaire in your work? Many, but probably, and now I don't know how to see the results of my.
If you want to, what we can do, I can write on the chat, click, so give a thumbs up if you've used it. So hold on.
Yeah.
So let's click, so I'll just write in chat, thumbs up if you have used LHQ. Don't just do the thumbs up. So if you look at the chat, I've written thumbs up if you use LHQ3. Everybody has used it. If you just give a thumbs up to that message, it will accumulate that.
Maybe you can, yeah.
So
maybe
if you look at the
can
chat,
also use, sorry, yes.
In the chat, you can see it. So for example, I've written thumbs up if you've used LHQ3. At the moment, 4 people have done thumbs up in the chat.
Yeah, if you have some, just from the top of your head, your general impression of the questionnaire, that would also be great, and you can probably type it in the in chat, now that we have chat. And we can discuss it, of course, in the discussion time. So for me and for my colleagues, it was the first time to use it, and it was quite an interesting experience. So I would like to begin by very briefly presenting what kind of sociolinguistic background assessment I have encountered in other studies of variation in indigenous languages. Sorry. Yes. So what people do is have some kind of categorical assessment. So putting people in groups, larger groups. So for example, comparing bilinguals and monolinguals, having slightly more fine-grained categories which arise from biographic interviews, such as conservative speakers versus writers versus shifters versus new speakers. This is something that has been done in work on shifting languages. Also, other groups that have been used were based on ethnicity. So let's say ethnic people who are consider themselves ethnically Mano or ethnically Kpelle. This is what I have done. Age groups or residential areas. And people have tried to quantify the levels of engagement via language use questionnaires. And they have done it through trying to aggregate into a single index. This is also something that I have tried to do in the beginning, but then I kept just groups of speakers and not an index. So an index somehow cumulatively represents the results of a language use questionnaire. So how much a particular person uses a particular language, it's done via a numerical, it's agglomerated into a numerical index. And then LHQ3, what it does is it provides an opportunity to do multiple regression analysis of different parameters of engagement, and also putting different weights, so considering some parameters more important than others. So this is what LHQ3 is about. So it's really interesting to try it. But there are problems with it. It's obvious for anybody who works on non-weird languages that LHQ3 is created for weird settings, and it has to be adapted. So the main issues that I will be talking about are related to super multilingualism. So it's even the settings that are even more multilingual that LHQ3 can possibly accommodate. The problem of the link between language and ethnicity, which I have touched on, and I will elaborate on more, and also some further cultural specificities and education and literacy are big differences. in the non-weird settings. So I start with the super multilingualism. As you know, those of you who have used LHQ3, it is designed for 4 languages in the repertoire, which is already quite generous because there are questionnaires that that are designed for just 2 languages. 4 is already great, but sometimes I have seen that even 4 is not enough. So, for example, what we have is a problem that different regions within the same country have different dominant indigenous languages and in general different setups of populations. So, for example, we had to adapt the question about mobility. I will show you what it yielded. And every new country or region has its own set of languages. So there's a question in LHQ3, number 10, about mobility. It asks a person whether they have lived or traveled in countries other than the country of residence for a longer period of time. What's the language that they use? The idea is that if you, let's say, if you live in Finland, you speak Finnish, then you move to Spain and you start speaking French, then you move to Norway, you speak Norwegian, etc. So there's one language per country. But this is not what we have in Guinea. So, for example, one individual, a 35-year-old, he reported that his main languages in the repertoire are Mano, Kpelle, Maninka, which is another indigenous language, and French. But then he also said that he has lived in Liberia, where he spoke, and these are the languages in the order of appearance in his response, English suddenly, and then Mano, French, and Kpelle. English, as you may know, English is the lingua franca of Liberia, or maybe English-based varieties. Even though he didn't speak it that much, you see that the number that he gave to this question is 2. It's still obviously a language that he had to be exposed to while he was staying in Liberia. So English, he also speaks. It turns out he speaks some English in addition to the 4 languages that he mentioned, but it has no place in the questionnaire because it has only room for 4 languages. Then a potentially bigger problem is this link between language and ethnicity. So there's no term in Mano for native language or langue maternelle, even though this is langue maternelle, maternal language in French. This is what they would use in French, but in Mano, they would say something very different. They would say own language. So, for example, that's an excerpt from a sociolinguistic interview. The interviewer says, now I'm translating to you what he translates. So he asked the question in Mano, then he translated it in French, and I'm providing a translation from French into English. So he asked the following: the languages that you learned besides Kpelle, your maternal language. So he said in French, he translated this in French, ta langue maternelle. But what he said in Mano literally is your language. So your own language, not langue maternelle or whatever, since you are a Kpelle woman. So it is a Kpelle woman, meaning that somebody is ethnically Kpelle, which means that somebody has a Kpelle father, and then it is assumed if somebody has a Kpelle father that their language is Kpelle. So that's the most important ideologically most important language in the repertoire. It's the father's language. It is not uncommon in sociolinguistic to exploit this link, the correlation of language preference and ethnicity in sociolinguistics. And this is what I did also in my prior work. But it is a very crude measure. So we didn't take the ethnic group. We took the ethnic group of both parents. So what we found out was that a person who has both Kpelle parents and not just a Kpelle father, so ethnicity turned out to be not statistically significant, but if we take both ethnicity, meaning the father, the ethnic group of the father, but if we take both parents, then if both of them belong to the Kpelle group, and then both of them of their own languages is Kpelle, then it would result in a significant difference for that person. But if we use more fine-grained measures like LHQ3, it only partially solves that problem because there is still a bias. So we have this ideological link between a language and ethnicity, and it gets translated into the responses. When somebody responds to a questionnaire like LHQ3, how does it happen? So, for example, we have a person who is ethnically Kono, that's yet another group. Again, meaning that her father is Kono, but actually, because she had an unusual socialization path, her preferred language is Mano. She learned it, as we learn from the questionnaire, she learned it earlier, and it's her best language. She considered it as her best language. But the interviewer, because it's such deeply ingrained that there's this association between the ethnic group and the language, when he listed different languages in the table, he put Kono first, as if it was the first and the best language. So that's the bias of the interviewer. And of course, we need to take into account that the interviewees are also biased, probably because they, by the community, they are expected to be proficient in their own language. And so whenever they give a number, for example, for their estimation of their proficiency, they can be exaggerated for the own language, and it can be downplayed for others. This is because they view themselves as let's say Kono speakers say they could exaggerate their proficiency in Kono and downplay their proficiency in other languages. And also when it comes to let's say cultural engagement, etc., they would say that Kono is the group that I'm the closest with, even though they may on the daily basis actually interact more with other groups. But this is because ideologically they are shaped to view the hierarchy of languages this way. And then the last problem are other cultural specificity, education, and literacy. So some questions and types of responses in the questionnaire are completely irrelevant in the setting. If you think about that, the question about gender, male, female, non-binary, and non-relevant, well, these two answers, non-binary and non-relevant, we ended up excluding them because I have never encountered a person who publicly assumes a non-binary identity in Guinea. So we just decided not to complicate things. So we just have male and female variants. Then the question about the way somebody learned or acquired the non-native language. So I've already talked about non-native, which is translated into French as langue maternelle. It's a separate problem. But the ways of acquisition. So we see that there is immersion, classroom instruction, and self-learning. As far as I understand, self-learning means that somebody is with a manual, let's say, of Italian, trying to learn some Italian before going on a trip to Italy to order I don't know, a pizza in Italian. This is not what happens, of course, because this is not how people learn the languages. But they often say that if you offer them these three variants, they would say, yes, I learned the language by myself, meaning that they didn't have any formal education in it. They were just immersed in the community and learned it from their peers and from adults. So they actually confuse immersion with self-learning. So again, we decided to exclude it because it just sometimes it may happen that people learn, let's say, English a little bit from the books, but it's so rare that we decided to exclude it just again to avoid complication. And then that's another question. Indicate the age at which you started using each of the languages. Online games and language software, it's out of the question, as you can imagine, in places where you actually don't even have access to electricity all the time. But even work is a problematic concept, because we've seen that many speakers don't consider things like traditional ways of earning living, such as agricultural work. They don't consider it work. They think that work is a white collar work in an office, in a government building, or maybe as a teacher in school. Trade, these kinds of activities, they are not considered work. So you would find women who say that they don't have any work, which is, it's completely not true. I don't think I've seen anybody who doesn't work in Guinea, because there are always complementary ways of earning money, such as trading goods, or of course agricultural labor. So work is problematic, but of course we've kept it. But we should keep in mind that it's people may understand something very different when they talk about work. Now, literacy. We have interviewed 12 speakers using LHQ3, and you can see that 3 of them have no formal education at all, so they have never been to school. Another person has been, it wasn't clear from the answers whether they have been to primary school, and then 3 persons have been just to primary school. And so you can see that many people haven't had very advanced formal education, which means two problems: oral administration of the questionnaire, and also the problems with Likert scale. So well, it's clear that illiterate participants, so if people haven't been to school, it means that they cannot read or write, and it means that they cannot fill in the questionnaire. So you cannot just print it and hand it to them, and 15 minutes later you have your background questionnaire filled in. It has to be administered orally, and this is what we've done. It was an interview, and we have done it in Mano, so later we will be also doing it in Kpelle. It takes about 1 hour to record, and several days to transcribe, and then we also put it in the database. So it has been very important to trial run. We've been doing this trial running in our old setting, Mano-Kpelle contact setting, where our Guinean colleague lives. And so we make sure that all questions are asked and all answers are filled in correctly, meaning that what the person said gets into the written form of the questionnaire in the intended way. And that's essential so that in the future we can actually avoid the transcription phase. So we can delegate to our Guinean colleague the interviews, then he can fill in the questionnaires by himself. He doesn't need to transcribe. So he will just re-listening to the answers. So we've had 12 participants in 12 months so far. But we are close, I think, close to being done with this, and it's quite nice because there will be data collection already in June with the new questionnaires. And so in the future, we hope that in May we will have a normalized written translation into Mano, such that so far he has been translating from French the questions in the questionnaire, but we will have a written translation into Mano so that he will be reading the same thing every time. And the French version is a modified, slightly modified, but there is an authorized version in French of LHQ3, which we found on the website. And now Likert scale, this has been, I think, the most important problem. So I return to that question that has used the Likert scale. So it's a very typical thing. I'm sure you have, even if it's not in LHQ3, in other questionnaires, you have it. So indicate the frequency of your use of the language, let's say. never, rarely, sometimes, regularly, often, usually, always. And we are so used to these kinds of things, and we are used to dealing things in numbers that it's not a problem for most of us in the weird settings. So we just say 3 or 7 or whatever. But here again, we have illiterate participants, and even those who are literate, they haven't dealt with these kinds of questionnaires a lot in their lives. So it has to be, the concept has to be explained to them. And also, as much as possible, it would be good to avoid the numbers, although we've seen that a lot of people actually understand how it works, but still keeping in mind that we may come across an illiterate person. We decided to adapt the Likert scale, well, first of all, by simplifying it from 7-point to a 5-point scale, and by avoiding the new numbers, and we use the graphic scale, which looks like this. So a big circle means a lot, and a small circles means a little. And we asked the participants not to give a number, let's say 5, but rather to point to the circle that represents their experience. And also, that was actually Jason's idea. Some of the answers, whenever possible, the answers were made categorical. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we asked for some of the questions whether the answer is never, always, or sometimes. So when it's never, then it's 1. When it's always, it's 5. It's just on the part of the interviewer, or he can just put 1 in his notes. And when it's sometimes, we have a 3-point scale, which is even simpler, hopefully. So we have these kinds of responses: jamais, toujours, so meaning never or always. This is what we started with. And then if or parfois, sometimes. And then if the person said parfois, we offered her a 3-point scale. So, for example, this is what it looks like on the interviewer's side. This is a reminder for him. It's again about the question about mobility. It's a reminder that it has to be a categorical question. So he asks a person whether it's jamais, toujours, or de temps en temps, and then offers a 3-point scale. And we also modified the questionnaire by regrouping the questions which involve categorical answers together, so that there is always the same kind of pattern: never, always, sometimes, never, always, sometimes. And then when it's unavoidable, when you can't answer a question by never, there is a 5-point scale, the questions with the 5-point scale. And if you are interested in seeing the version that we came up with, you can go you can use this QR code. I will keep it on the screen for some time, but I'm happy to share the slides and the link with you. This is how the questionnaire looks like now. And we may modify it a little bit before going to Conakry, but I hope it will remain in this form. So in the time that is left, I would like to compare the old sociolinguistic questionnaire, which we were always also using while trial running the LHQ3. So we used both, and so we wanted to compare the results. What predicts the variation patterns better, the old questionnaire or LHQ3? We have, as I said, 12 participants only. So in this 1 year since we've started using LHQ3, we've managed to collect only data from 12 participants. They all reside in a Kpelle dominant place. This is where we expect the greatest variation. So we didn't do repeat the same setup. We didn't go to the monolingual village. So we just stayed in a Kpelle dominant community. And so I will be reusing the variables from the old questionnaire: age, gender. They also appear, of course, age and gender in LHQ3, but also birthplace, meaning not only the name of the place, but also its social characteristics, whether it's a mono-dominant place or a Kpelle dominant place. the place where they reside. As I said, for all of them, it's the same Kpelle dominant town. The information also about the biological family, the fostering family thing that I didn't mention is that people often have a complex trajectory, in the sense that they are born with a set of parents, and then they spend a considerable amount of time, for example, with their uncles or with their grandparents. It's not just the nuclear family that raises the kid, but they move around as children a lot, not only as adults but also as children. And then the spouse, the ethnic identity of the spouse. With LHQ3, there are lots of things, and it doesn't. I thought it doesn't make much sense to include all of them because there are so few people. But I included education level and two composite variables. One is takes into account the age of listening acquisition. There's a question: when did you acquire listening? I don't remember exactly. Listening capacity in a particular language. And so we have the age that they indicated for Kpelle, and we subtract the age that they indicate for Mano. If we have a positive value, let's say the age for Kpelle is 5 and for Mano it's 3, it means that they started acquired the competence in listening in Mano earlier, right? Because the Mano value is smaller. They were younger when they started to understand Mano. And then there's a self-rated capacity of listening. We took the Mano value and we subtracted the Kpelle value. And the positive value means that they estimate that their capacity of listening is better in Mano. So again, positive values in these two variables means like an earlier and a better capacity in Mano. And we expect that positive values correlate with higher reflexivity rate. So meaning that if they acquired Mano earlier and they consider it their better language, it means that they use the Mano reflexive model and not the Kpelle reflexive model. This is the, just an Excel sheet. We ran statistical, we ran correlation for these parameters, but there was no statistical significance, not for any single parameter and not for interactions. So we can just assess qualitatively what I came up with. And so here we have different colors. The darker color means that a person was born in a Kpelle dominant place. This lighter gray means that they were born in a bilingual place. Then but this is their biological family. The darker shade means that both parents are Kpelle, and the lighter shade means that one parent is Kpelle and another parent is Mano. And I also indicated if it's a father or if the father is Kpelle or if it's Mano. And then some information about the adoptive family, because actually in this sample, 3 people had a different adoptive family. They were fostered as children. And then the spouse, then education. With red, you can see that somebody has never been to school. And then these are these composite variables from LHQ3. This is the difference in age of acquisition. And as again, positive values mean that Mano is acquired earlier. And you can see I tried also to use the shades of gray. Very dark gray means that Mano is actually, they started using it much later. And then the difference in self-rated capacity, again, dark gray means that they consider their Mano significantly worse than their Kpelle. And then the positive values mean that they consider their Mano better than their Kpelle. And this weird 2.7 means that I converted, I used in the middle of that trial run, I started using the 5-point scale. So, and here it had to be normalized somehow. And then the score, this is the most important column, the reflexivity score. The darkest green means the lowest reflexivity rate, meaning that the person essentially uses the Kpelle model, and then 1 means that they use the Mano model. Well, again, without statistical significance, we can't say anything whether any of these questionnaires is better. Both of them in this particular sample are not very good. But you can see that overall, the darker gray, this is from the old questionnaire, the darker gray things, meaning that the people from Kpelle background tend to perform worse, having more Kpelle model, and the lighter the background is, well, actually these people, they all had the Mano model, but the same goes from the new questionnaire. Also, the darker results somehow indicate that the reflexivity score would be worse. And then there would be unexpected people. So this person, for example, indicated that her Mano was much worse than her Kpelle, but she had a perfectly Mano reflexivity pattern. Maybe this is because she hasn't been to school and she didn't quite understand the concept of Likert scale, or maybe she was biased, that own language bias. She just said that her Mano is not so good because it's not her own language. And here, for example, we have people with a like Kpelle-like reflexivity pattern, and we don't quite understand why, because if you are from a bilingual family, in the prior work, I showed that it's most likely that the reflexivity pattern would be as if you were from a Mano family. And also the answers from the LHQ3 questionnaire, they were like their Mano is as good as their Kpelle, or pretty much as good, or acquired even earlier than Kpelle. Somehow they don't have the baseline Mano reflexivity pattern. So it still remains to be seen, and I think I will stick to both questionnaires just to make sure we don't lose any information. And I hope that with more speakers and more data, we will reach statistical significance, and it will compensate for all the trouble we've had with LHQ3. So I would like to thank the colleagues who have worked with me on this project, and also I'm adding thanks to Jason and to Lila for the ongoing conversation. Thanks. And I'm really hopeful we'll have a discussion about these things, and you will help me even more. So your questions and suggestions are really welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.